Grit by Angela Duckworth is a New York Times bestseller. It remained top of the bestseller list for 21 weeks. Grit has been translated into multiple languages and is available worldwide. Her TED Talk about the book has been viewed 16 million times, and the book is probably the reason your boss, CEO, and favourite business podcaster talks about having grit. And yet there's a problem.
But Angela Duckworth, here what's interesting is the black and white nature of it is on a slightly different dimension.
That's today's guest on Nudge, whose own TED Talk has been viewed a few million times as well.
My name's Alex Edmans. I'm a professor of finance at London Business School, a non-executive director, and author of a book, May Contain Lies, about bias and misinformation.
Let's just say Alex isn't a huge fan of the book Grit.
So let me explain what the book is about. So it claims that to be successful, you need not raw talent, but you need grit, which is passion and perseverance. And you might think, well, this sounds a little bit like Malcolm Gladwell's 10,000 Hours, but it's slightly different in the following way. So what she does is she backs it up by evidence, and she is a great scientist. I respect her work. It's more the challenge of this popular book rather than her science. Well, her most famous study took men and women who'd got into West Point. That's the United States military academy. And after you get into West Point, you're not automatically let into the army. You have to complete a difficult 6-week course called Beast Barracks. And so this is a really hard physical challenge. She wanted to look at what predicts success in Beast Barracks. Well, what do you think predicts success? Well, you might think it's physical fitness, but she finds it's not. She found that something which was even more important than physical fitness was your grit, which is your passion and perseverance, which she measured with a survey. Now, that sounds really compelling. And if indeed grit is more powerful than fitness for a physically demanding challenge like Beast Barracks, then grit must be what everybody should develop. And how do you develop it? You buy her book. However, what she suffered from was a problem known as restriction of range. So this is not a problem of misapplying something from the army to a different context. Even if your only goal was to be in the army, you should be concerned of this range issue. So what do I mean by this range issue? The people who'd already got into West Point were already extremely fit. So if there's diminishing returns to fitness, then indeed fitness won't matter because everybody is already fit to begin with, and that's why other things like grit seem to be more important. But if you were to take the average person who wants to join the military, then he or she might be better off working on their fitness than their grit. So what is true among a small set of people who've already got into West Point is not true for the population in general. So this is why I call it restriction of range. What's true for a range of very fit people isn't true for the population in general, which has a big deviance in terms of how fit they are.
In the book, Duckworth also claims that grit can be used to predict how far kids will go in National Spelling Bee finals, and even managed to forecast a grade of 139 University of Pennsylvania undergrads over and above SAT scores. But just like with the Army cadets, Duckworth was measuring the wrong students. Alex writes in his book that students in the University of Pennsylvania's study already had SAT scores in the 96th percentile. But for average students, SAT scores might be a strong predictor of grades rather than grit. Kids in the Spelling Bee finals were already in the highest echelon of IQ. Beyond those settings, for mere mortals wanting to become a successful writer, singer, or doctor, it may be even more important to work on honing your craft than your grit. Grit only helps you if you already have military-grade fitness or extremely high levels of IQ. It won't help the average person become a Spelling Bee champion, which does directly contradict parts of the book.
And this is really important because we love to learn from success stories. And there's so many books out there, biographies about success stories. We want to learn the secrets to success. But actually, if you focus only on successful people, then you might actually be ignoring the big driver that led them to be successful to begin with, because there's no difference in that characteristic among that small cohort.
Google made the same mistake when trying to measure what makes a successful team. By only studying their own staff, who were already intelligent and great collaborators, they couldn't accurately predict what would make an average employee into a great team member.
So everybody already within Google has a computer science degree or equivalent. And so empathy, or I think it's psychological safety, is what they pointed to in the Project Aristotle. That seemed to be key. But out of the general population, what really matters is getting into Google to begin with, rather than being in the top versus bottom half of Google, and what matters might be more boring things like a computer science degree.
During World War II, analysts studied the bullet holes on returning planes to learn where to reinforce their armour. They would put more armour on the places where the bullet holes were most common. But the statistician, Abraham Wald, realised they were only seeing planes that survived. So he recommended reinforcing the areas that didn't have bullet holes. Those who were shot in that area probably never came back. What this story tells us is that we can't understand success if we only learn from the successful. I won't finish today's episode by recommending you read Grit, but there are 25 other books I do recommend. To download my reading list of 25 books I recommend, and 5 I suggest you should avoid, just click the link in the description, enter your email, and you'll get my full reading list for free.